PA to Duluth. Very strange. So there's still
For
some
so long, right? 2
Recording
years.
stopped.
exactly. So I was just with the Canadian consulate. We were doing an event, and he gave me a Canadian hat, and all is good.
Well,
So
that's fun. This is very exciting. I go to a documentary film festival in Toronto every year, and it's been canceled, of course, for the last two. So
yeah,
I appreciate it being open so I can go watch some documentaries.
there you go. People have many, many, many reasons. So
Right?
I'm just trying to figure out if we want to start here, maybe. And is David is on the phone too? You on? David Guernsey? I don't see him yet, but it doesn't. Okay, and then also Sarah. Are you on? Sarah Peipenberg? Okay, I guess we're waiting.
I am.
Oh, excellent. Well, there you are.
We start. Do we want camera?
Yeah, you're on an iPhone, not on the camera, I think. Okay, well, I think what I'm going to do is get started because we have a lot of people with schedules. We got a lot of people on the call, and then we will go from there because I know everyone's going to get on, and we'll figure out the camera situation there. So, all right. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today to talk about how important it is for small and medium businesses to have a fair playing field online, and how our bipartisan legislation is going to help to accomplish that. It's really that straightforward. I'd like to thank the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, the Main Street Alliance, Small Business Rising, and Accountable Tech for their help in organizing this event. We are joined today by three small business owners. First of all, Sarah Peipenberg, who's a co-owner of Vinaigrette, a family-owned food store selling specialty oils and vinegars in Southwest Minneapolis. Also, Gina Schaefer, who I was just speaking to, who's the owner and CEO of a chain of Ace Hardware stores in Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. And then David Guernsey, who's the CEO of Guernsey Office Products, an independent office products dealer. So you might think at first these three businesses may not have a lot in common in their product lines. But in fact, what they have in common is trying to do business in an era of dominant tech monopoly platforms. And we know we have a major monopoly issue across this country in terms of all the consolidation that we're seeing that makes it harder and harder to have an even playing field. And we know we love all the new products. I'm wearing a Fitbit right now.
Recording in progress.
We love the fact that we have a number of people employed in these areas in tech, the new ideas, the new technology that connects people better, especially during the pandemic. But that doesn't mean that we just say, okay, we're glad that small businesses can advertise or sell products on these platforms. We are. But that doesn't mean we just say, so that's it, everything's great. We know not everything's great, because when you have a situation like we have in our country with dominant platforms in many four different segmented areas, you're going to have trouble if you don't do anything about it. And we have not been adequately funding our enforcement agencies on the federal level. That's why you see a lot of action in the states, which is good. But traditionally, when you look at antitrust and major exclusionary conduct of major companies, the biggest the world has ever known, you want to see some action out of the federal level, and that is starting. But it's one of the reasons we're also focused on who's in these jobs at the federal level, and also that they have the resources that they need to do their jobs. And Senator Grassley and I just passed a major bill out of the U.S. Senate. It's actually passed the Senate to change the way merger fees are assessed. That'll bring in over $100 million for the big mega mergers that can be used for the agencies. Secondly, in this bill that we are debating in the next month, As part of that Build Back Better competitive agenda. There's also significant funding for the two agencies in those bills, and that's Department of Justice Antitrust as well as the FTC. So that's number one, because it's right in front of me right now, but it will make a difference. The second thing is, of course, making sure that our laws are clarified to take care of the sophistication of our economy and allow businesses to flourish, but at the same time, putting in some protections for consumers. We literally 20% of the economy is now tech, and yet we have no federal privacy law. We have made no changes to our competition law. We really haven't done anything to adapt to the environment that we're in. And so that's really the core of what we're talking about today. Big tech platforms, including Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook, are currently able to exclude their rivals by self-preferencing. As business owners that we're going to hear from today, just 3 of them, everyone knows what self-preferencing looks like. It sounds like a weird term, but it actually, for a change, is a term that describes what it is. It means that when someone goes onto Amazon to buy vinegar or tools or office supplies, Amazon might push them towards their own line of products, right, that Amazon has, even ahead of those of competitors who are less expensive or of higher quality. So what happens then? Yes, you can advertise, and of course we want that to continue. I love the scare tactics, like we somehow want these platforms to completely go away, or that products, Amazon Prime will go away. It's just a total lie. What we're trying to make sure is that businesses and customers who do advertise on these platforms don't get ripped off. That's what it is, plain and simple. Self-preferencing also means that a dominant platform pressures someone that is selling or advertising to use its own services, like shipping, to get preference on the platform. In other words, unless you buy all this other stuff from us, or we're not going to give you preference on the platform or give you what your rightful preference would be. It also might mean using non-public data, stuff that the dominant platform gathers from users and small businesses to build knockoff products and compete against the companies that we're paying to advertise on their platforms. This is actually one of my favorite examples because it's so blatantly wrong. This is not your local grocery store chain selling store brand potato chips to compete with a brand name product. This is a dominant platform, in this case Amazon, using incredibly detailed non-public information to box out competition from small innovators. So yes, how did they get that information? Well, because these businesses, the innovators, the small businesses, had to advertise on only one platform. So what does this look like? In one case, an employee of Amazon's private label arm accessed a detailed sales report with 25 columns in information on a car trunk organizer produced by a small Brooklyn company called Fortem. In October 2019, Amazon started selling 3 trunk organizers of its own. When shown the collection data Amazon had gathered about its brand before launching its own product, Fortrum's co-founder called it a big surprise. Well, that's kind of a euphemism. And it's only because of some excellent reporting across the country that we've been able to uncover this. But as I've now looked into it, there's tons of this going on that hasn't been reported, simply because it's hard to find all of these cases. I don't think most of us assume that trillion-dollar companies put their troves of data to work boxing small businesses out of the trunk organizer market, but it happened. That's why we're here today to talk about the American Innovation and Choice Online Act to end this anti-competitive behavior. I introduced this legislation last month with Senator Chuck Grassley, who is the ranking Republican on the Judiciary Committee, as well as a bipartisan group of my colleagues, which includes Senator Durbin, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Graham, the former chair of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Kennedy, Senator Hawley, Senator Booker, Senator Warner, Senator Lummis, Senator Dane, Senator Hirono, and a lot of additional interest, of course, in this bill as well. What does this legislation mean? Well, it means that Apple won't be able to misuse non-public small business data in order to copy products. Apple won't be able to stifle competition by blocking other companies' services from interoperating with their platform. And Google won't be able to bias their platform search results in favor of their own products without merit. The result? A fairer playing field for small and medium businesses, more options, more flexibility, and more access to markets and fostering entrepreneurship for what we'll call the new kids on the block. And again, just to correct some misinformation that is being spread by big tech companies and their lobbyists. And by the way, I've got this Zoom call with you guys, and they have literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lobbyists. So listen up, because this is what Senator Grassley and I have been making very clear. This bill does not outlaw Amazon Prime, and it doesn't stop Apple from preloading useful apps onto iPhones, and it doesn't make anyone pay to use Google Maps. In fact, Senator Grassley and I spent the entire summer working on this bill to make sure it did none of that. We value these company services. We want them to continue to be provided, but just as successful, accountable legislators and senators and members of Congress have done for centuries, we understand that our job is to make this work for America, to make our economy be fair to everyone that participates, and to not box out competitors just because somehow, in my mind, sadly, we have allowed a monopoly situation to develop on these dominant tech platforms. And by the way, there are many solutions to this, in addition to this bill in front of us, including doing something about app stores, including look at what the merger standards are, including, as I mentioned at the beginning, making sure the Justice Department and the FTC has the funding to go after these cases in a real way. So there's a lot of more work that needs to be done, but today we're talking about something that the Washington Post editorial page recently said was a very reasonable approach when it comes to tech, and something that we have ironed out the details so we can finally take on something that everyone just looks at it and knows it's wrong. So I want to thank all of you for taking this on with me. We listened, and that's why we did this bill. It's been well received by Democrats, Republicans, and small businesses groups. It's about leveling the playing field and making sure that businesses and entrepreneurs creating the ideas and innovations of the future have a fair chance. And it's an important and bipartisan first step in addressing America's monopoly power. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, fellow Minnesotan, who's going to talk about her experience running her own family business. And then we'll go to Gina and then David. And then I'll ask you guys a few questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Sarah Piepenberg, and I'm the founder and owner of Vinaigrette, a specialty olive oil and vinegar store in Minneapolis with customers around the country. I'm a member of Main Street Alliance, which represents small business owners who are urging policymakers to create a level playing field for small businesses like mine. At the height of the pandemic, Amazon's unchecked dominance had a devastating impact on my business, going far beyond what fair competition allows. As an online retail monopoly, Amazon undercuts my business in many ways. Last April, our longstanding logistics partner told us they were dropping us from our distribution route. They had signed a contract with Amazon worth $1 million. We searched far and wide for other distributors, but Amazon had struck similar deals up and down the supply chain. When we finally found a new distributor, the cost to ship was astronomical, 4 times what we had been paying the previous 9 years of our business. And distribution of our products wasn't the only blow that Amazon dealt us. By cornering the supply chain, Amazon's dominance over shipping also made it impossible for our usual supplier to send us bottles. So we were forced to drive to Milwaukee and load up our family minivan with merchandise to keep our doors open. We've now made 2 subsequent trips to actually Chicago to pick up our olive oil and vinegar because we cannot find a less than truckload carrier to pick up our items. Over the past year, Amazon and other corporate giants have only been increasing their grip on the supply chain. These blows came during a pandemic that forced many small businesses like mine to shutter, a pandemic during which Amazon made record profits and expanded its dominance. Over the past 2 years, people across the United States and all sorts of communities have seen once again how important small businesses are for quality employment, for economic opportunity, and for community life. Small businesses want a fair chance to compete. Online monopolies stand in our way. We know the platforms like Amazon use the control of online marketplaces to undermine competition and keep innovative businesses from succeeding. But big tech monopolies don't just dominate the platforms they control, they also crowd out small businesses up and down the supply chain. And they can do this because the rules are rigged in their favor. We need policymakers to level the playing field for Main Street businesses like my own, small businesses like mine.
Oops, Sarah, we're losing you a little bit there.
My senator.
Sarah.
To start bringing.
Hey, Sarah, you know what? We can't. The connection went bad there a little bit. You want to try just the last few sentences again? You know what? Yeah, better now. Yeah.
Okay. Adopting clear, effective rules to stop Amazon and other big tech corporations from abusing their power and engaging in anti-competitive practices on the platforms they control is crucial. And that's just the start of what Main Street needs. We also need Congress to adopt structural separation legislation for big tech in order to protect our markets from inherent conflicts of interest. And we need Congress to pass stronger, more responsive antitrust laws across our economy to help create jobs and prosperity for Main Streets everywhere.
Okay, very good. I really appreciate it. And thanks for, in a really difficult business situation, hanging in there. And we're proud of you. So now I know where to get my Christmas gift. So, okay. Thank you. Next up, Gina. Oh, you're muted, Gina. The senators always do this too.
So. You know, we do this all day long, and you'd think the first thing we should do is take it off mute. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I'm not sure I can be quite as eloquent as Sarah, but just to speak anecdotally and a little bit first about myself. I own and operate 13 Ace Hardware stores in Washington, Baltimore, and Virginia. I have 260 teammates. We are in the process of selling our business to our folks through an ESOP, so that's super exciting around here. We sell about 25,000 items, and we're a member of the Ace Hardware Cooperative. So the nice thing for me, at least when I started my business 19 years ago, is that power of the co-op really worked in my favor to help keep us competitive from a pricing standpoint, supply chain, all of the struggles that small businesses have. I had, somewhat of an advantage being part of a cooperative program, but I've really watched that get stretched and stretched over the last decade, even though we have all of those products and that support. I have the ability to work with a lot of small suppliers, and throughout the years, the stories that they tell continue to get worse. Things like Sarah's example with the delivery program, the shipping contractor getting a better deal. In my case, it's been small makers that we sell their products in our stores who have seen their products knocked off on the Amazon platform. So there's two things either happening. One, either Amazon sees that it's selling really well and they raise their fees, or they knock it off themselves, or they allow, predatory knockoff companies to see the products that are selling, and they make them themselves and start to sell them on the platform at better pricing, which then Amazon appreciates. And I've had, countless small vendors over the years that have told me that this has happened to them, to the point where they now try not to sell on the Amazon platform, which sort of then takes us to the next step. That is the platform. So as an example, I purchased something from Etsy a couple months ago for a gift, and it showed up in an Amazon box. And my husband will tell you that when I see a box, an Amazon box, I cringe. And so it showed up in my office, and I didn't want my teammates to see that I bought something from Amazon. I immediately called the Etsy vendor, and he said, well, that's the only place that I can warehouse my products and distribute them through. And so he felt very hamstrung by having to use that platform for his supply chain. And then, of course, me as the end consumer felt obligated to send it back. because I didn't want to give any money to Amazon. And so I'm not sure who I'm hurting in that situation, but there's not really a solution when the supply chain throughout the process requires that everybody somehow involve Amazon in their solution. The Prime example I think is really interesting, and this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll stop for your questions. But I think that we as consumers have allowed a business to charge us to shop with them. And if you think about the walking into a Whole Foods, you get a better deal now if you're a Prime member. They're across the street from my office is one of their new grocery stores that doesn't require any employees. If you're a Prime member, you just walk right out the door without having to, quote unquote, pay for your products. It just goes straight to your account, because they can track you through your Prime membership. The last thing Amazon announced was that they were opening department stores. And I can guarantee that they can open the department stores in the places where they know things are selling, because they have the ability through big tech to track what I'm selling in my business. And I find that terrifying. So I will stop, except to say that I will support this legislation in any way I can. It's time for something to happen. To make us feel safer as members of the community. You think about a Main Street in Minnesota, in Washington, D.C., and Virginia. I always envision it being empty because all small business is gone. And that means our neighborhoods aren't safe. They're not healthy places to live. There's less tax base for the schools and healthcare workers and the police force. And that's not something that I've ever envisioned of a Main Street that I live in and support with my business.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. Okay, next up, we've got Dave.
Yeah, Dave Guernsey. And first of all, Gina, let me just say that I patronize one of your stores in the area. So I'm from the Washington area as well. I love Ace Hardware, the great program. And thank you, Senator, for addressing the issue. On behalf of small business, I think Amazon has a crushing impact and can even have more so as we go down the road if somebody doesn't do something about this urgently. As I said, my name is David Guernsey. I've been in business 50 years. I have a number of different businesses that fall under the Guernsey Incorporated banner. And we're also a member of Small Business Rising as well, and very hopeful for the initiative that they're chasing. The Guernsey Company, we're a little bit different than both Gina and Sarah. We are a B2B reseller only. We only work with businesses and businesses that are all manner of them, actually, be they in the educational or the healthcare, traditional offices, resellers like automotive dealers, that sort of thing. We sell virtually all of the products that these businesses use in their day-to-day operations. But what we don't do is we don't sell on the Amazon platform. And we don't for one very specific reason, and that is that if we were to do that, they would have access to the agreements that we have with our some 8,000 customers, most of them developed for those customers for their particular needs. Everybody's not the same. In fact, in many cases, they're very different. So whether it's products or services, information, whatever it might be, Amazon would have access to that. They would have access to the purchase history. They would have access to the pricing. They would be able, should they want to be able to undercut us on almost every single level. So it's not really an option for us to be a part of that particular program because they have such an edge that we can't risk our business in that sense. They do have quite an impact on us, particularly during the pandemic, because so much of what we typically would sell to the business world has moved to a work from home type of environment. And that is I think a gift handed to Amazon, and they've taken advantage of it. And I don't fault them for that. It's just something that my business is not prepared to compete with them on that level. So one interesting thing is that what we do is follow competitive analysis with Amazon, because I think they leave the impression with folks that they are the lowest price, that they have the newest and the greatest services. And I would tell you, in my world, that's not the case at all. In the competitive analysis that we do with them, we find that very rarely are their pricing programs as competitive as ours. And things like next day delivery, same day delivery, we've been doing that for 30 years. That's nothing new. They didn't invent it. And to some extent, consumers, I think, are a bit misled by what they bring to the table. But small businesses are certainly compromised in being able to get that message out to the broader customer base. So that's my story, Senator. That's where I'm coming from with the Amazon.
Very good. Well, why don't we go? I'm just going to ask you guys some of the questions that would relate to the practices that we're getting at with the bill, not the things they're making up. And I think we all understand that while Dave may have a unique situation that he would like to, most likely, I would guess, right, Dave, advertise on Amazon if his business data was protected and things were an even playing field, he's found a way to do it. But for a lot of small businesses, as more and more people buy only from the dominant platform, they don't have a lot of choice in the matter. So that's why, if you look at it that way, you've got a dominant platform. Some businesses have found a ways to get around it, but they'd still rather be able to advertise there too, but they can't because they think their product's going to be ripped off. They won't be treated in the same way as other Amazon-based products, or they're going to get screwed, let's say, in another way in the search engine with whatever it would be, restaurant reviews and the like. And it creates this problem. I mean, a lot of people are actually scared to take them on because they're afraid that when they do it, then they're going to get treated worse in whatever it is, negotiations for how much they have to pay. And we've heard this, by the way, not just from small businesses, but from really big businesses who are also just, they are not able to take on a dominant platform like that. So why don't we start with that idea of ripping off the data, whether it's to build something like the trunk organizer I used, or what you're talking about with your data. Could you guys talk about the problem of the competitive disadvantage? And Dave, you've just done it. If you want to add anything, it creates when they have a unique access to your data, and yet they're competing in your same product group. So go ahead.
I would just add, we'd love to be a part of their platform. It would broaden our outreach to a national audience. It's obviously superior technology than what we're able to bring to the table with our web-based platform, but we can't do it. We just can't provide them that kind of information. In our industry, we started years ago as an office products company. In our industry, they match all of the products, and any number of companies in the office products industry did get on the Amazon platform, only to find that Amazon would do one or two things. They would either undercut them on price on the items that they were actually selling, or they would bring their private brands and undercut them on that basis. And I just don't see letting yourself be accessed like that.
Yeah. Does anyone want to add anything about on this front? Maybe who has unique products that has issues on the data front, or know of other businesses that have?
I think one of the problems is there's a lot of small business owners that don't know what they sign up for. And that was my piece. Like, I feel like I at least had some of that understanding prior. So why would I put myself on Amazon so that you could literally collect the information to market specifically to the people that were buying from me so that you could change it? And I'm paying you to do that, because you have to pay to be on that platform, giving them that. And I feel fortunate in that, that piece, but that it's such a dangerous, it's dangerous to have that, to literally pay someone to market against you. Pay someone to sell your product to then steal it. That's the piece that's so hard and frustrating.
Right. And that's why my position is, okay, you've got this platform that has a lot of advantages, but pretty soon for some businesses, the disadvantages outweigh it, like Dave just explained. But for others, they literally get ruined in the process of trying to compete in that environment. So the argument is not to just throw everything out. The argument is to put in place some sensible rules so they can't mess around with you like this while they are still making money in so many ways, incredibly profitable company, as is Google and others. And you put these rules in, and they are completely freaking out about this and hiring all these lobbyists and spending all this money against us. And that's when I know we're on to something here. And I just have to get more of my colleagues on board and have more of your businesses come forward, because here's an example where a number of, people are still advertising on there. They want to, but they know that this isn't how it was supposed to be and how it should be, and we need to fix some things. And then there's others that went off it, but would still like to advertise on it, but know of the high risks. So there's the data issue, and there's the ripping off of the product issue. Then there's the self-preferencing of maybe on a search engine where they put their stuff up at the top, or they put, and this is related to the third thing in the bill, they put stuff at the top from people who are only willing to buy the ancillary products, whether it's the shipping or the like. Does anyone want to talk about that issue?
Well, I think it just speaks to the controlling it from start to finish. And I've seen this, the example with the product that I bought on Etsy, and some of my other small vendors. If you are a small inventor, for example, you have to go somewhere to sell your product. And increasingly that the opportunity, the places for you to go is getting shrunk, right? It's eventually, at this point, it looks like it will eventually just be Amazon. So you feel like, well, that's the platform, that's where people are going, so that's where I'm going to sell it. And then they add the ancillary products. You have to use AWS, and then you have to use their shipping company. And then all of a sudden, they can just tell you they're going to raise the fees, or they're going to kick you off because you're not selling enough. And what I've heard from several of our vendors, it's not that they're not selling, it's just they have figured out how to make a private label product that they will then sell cheaper, because now they have collected all of that stuff. So I don't think any of us are saying anything that's really any different. It's definitely what you're getting at, Senator, is that they have figured out a way, and we've let them. From soup to nuts, they control that entire supply chain. I mean, I have been receiving probably for the last 2 years, well, throughout the pandemic, about a third of the products that I order each week. And it terrifies me to think that, if my co-op, for example, eventually felt like they had to use the AWS platform, that my trucks could just stop showing up altogether one day. And then what happens not only to me, and I guess I'm considered a mid-sized business at this point, but what happens to all of those smaller makers who we support? We have lots of vendors who try to support the cooperatives, for example, first, and not do anything with the big box stores or Amazon. But eventually, if they want to grow their business, they see that as their only opportunity, and then they're stuck. It's a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So just two last questions. What do you believe, as small business owners, what do you think it would mean for small businesses in this country if Congress doesn't act to get at some of these problems? Because I think short term, and the tech companies argue this all the time, well, it's great, they have a place to advertise on Facebook, on this or this, and everyone knows that's true, right? They have a place they can sell some products and things like that. But over time, it stopped just being a marketplace where you can equally put up rates to being one where they are now developing their own products. And I'll give you a little clue here. If history's a guide, monopolies will do what monopolies do. They're gonna, if they start pulling back in one part of the business, and they're gonna find other ways to make money. I think you've seen this with Facebook in a very different way. Well, it's related, but a way that's very profit oriented, regardless of what it means for the rest of society. With how they did their algorithms and everything, all geared at how they make more money from advertising. So just talk about, if we just let this go, what you think will happen eventually if we don't put some rules of the road in place.
Well, I would say in my world, the consumer is disadvantaged because it takes small business out of the picture. As an example, if we were to climb on the Amazon platform and they would continue to roll out the requirements necessary, for instance, to get into the buy box and be noticed in a very visible kind of fashion, or the most visible kind of fashion. The cost that they would heap on us is mind-boggling. It's beyond what, number one, we can be profitable at, and quite frankly, even be competitive with. And so if we were to do that, whether we stayed in business or not, the consumer would be disadvantaged simply because we really wouldn't be a good choice for them. And at some point, we go away and Amazon just continues to dominate. I think it's interesting that Amazon started as that little bookstore, and then they started with the platform, and then they added fulfillment, they added warehousing, they added shipping. They keep adding to this. I don't know where this ends. Quite frankly, it's pretty clever, but I don't think it's good for the consumer long term, and it's certainly not good for small business.
Okay.
I think we'll see. I mean, the only places you'll be able to shop is going to be Amazon. I mean, we've already seen like storefronts are going to be gone. And we're the ones that donate to your school's, fundraiser. We're the one that, spends $25 in the yearbook to help promote the yearbooks in the neighborhood. I mean, we're Main Street businesses that are going to be gone. And, you're looking at this from a platform perspective, but like I said, take it all the way down to logistics. They already have their own fleets. They already have their own logistics department. They are now subcontracting with less than truckload carriers to completely knock us out. I have no way of getting product. The two auto parts stores across the street have no way of getting their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've lost 3 less than truckload carriers to Amazon. So how do I get my product? Aside from loading up my own minivan and driving to Chicago and Milwaukee.
Which you did.
Right. And
your
then
argument is as we struggle with supply chain, which we all know there's issues worldwide right now with supply chain for many reasons, that what's happening, and again, it's because of the dominant platform situation, is that Amazon is then able to take up kind of buy what's there because of their dominant position, and it's hurting you even more than it was before. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, we are facing potentially closing our doors.
Okay. All right.
So,
Sarah.
I mean, and then there's a lot of other businesses that are too.
Yeah.
So,
when did you open your business?
We're 12 years old. We're 12 years old. We've been here for 12 years. 12 years.
Exactly. And how many employees?
And a true pillar of our community.
How many employees?
Currently we have two right now. We've had up to 5, but pandemic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for reminding us of how dire this can be if we don't do something here. Okay, Gina. And I guess my other last question of everyone will be, how can we best support? I've already offered to go. I'm going to go over to Sarah's business and get some Christmas presents. But beyond that act, just what kind of things can we do to help support all of you? Maybe you want to take that, Gina.
I mean, I've often said, at least for the DC government, I want everyone's voice. I want them to be celebrating our main streets and our local small businesses rather than, opening the floodgates to Amazon coming in and taking over. So I think anything the federal government can do to herald small businesses, support us. Obviously, this legislation is so incredibly important for all of us. I think about, my employees and where they would work if we were put out of business. I mean, not everybody can drive a truck or work at an Amazon warehouse that's somewhere in the suburbs. And so that's very terrifying to me. And we hire a lot of people who come from non-traditional backgrounds, maybe returning citizens, or maybe they're in some sort of recovery program, or moms with small children. And we are their business of choice to work for because we are, near their homes and healthy places to work. So in addition to the consumers, I think, getting the short end of the stick, employees will too. And that really concerns me. So I don't know. What you can do is just keep fighting for us.
Right. And I think traditionally that has been an issue with monopolies, of course, because then employees have less choices of where they work. It makes sense. This is going way back in time, that when you go back like to the beginnings of the antitrust laws, it was really interwoven with two things. One, the Granger movement, which was farmers. Listen to this, Sarah. It may not seem like it's your oils right now, but it was farmers really upset about dominance of supply chain issues, right? How much the rail was costing and how hard it was because that was a monopoly and so forth. The other piece of it, getting to what Gina said, was the workers, particularly in Chicago, and because of the beef trust or because of the rail trust, or and there were the Haymarket riots, which were a tragic moment in our country's history, where people actually died, and equipment manufacturers and the like. The workers were really mad because they didn't have choices. The Pullman company of where to work. So you have this going on, what I see right now, what's happening and where we're headed, if we don't really take this on in a way. And no one ever said it's going to be easy, right? It's no one knows better than me. And getting this coalition of people together to lead this bill, which I think Samantha Bee called last week in the Ocean's 11 of co-sponsors. But a lot of it was people, while we may have different ideological views, for certain, what unites us on this issue is a belief that in competition and capitalism, and that we want this to work, and that's how you get new ideas. And that, yes, you can put rules in place on kids and privacy and Facebook, and that is going to be so important. But at the same time, you also, by unleashing competition with fair playing fields, is how you get a lot of solutions to things too, and you get choices, and you don't run into all this one company dominance that we're seeing right now. Anyway,
can I just add one thing? I think and I'm all for advancement in technology, but when more and more businesses that are being opened specifically by Amazon don't require employees, that's a slippery slope as well. Because it's one thing if we decide we want our main streets to be full of Amazon-owned companies, but when they don't actually have to employ people, we're not getting anywhere as a society, right? That's technology not helping anyone but themselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Sarah and Dave, you want to close it out here just on what you think we should be doing to promote your businesses and other businesses? Dave?
Okay. Sarah, you want to, ladies first?
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
I love the tenets of your bill, and I hope it goes forward. I have been around a long time, Senator, and I actually coached Chuck Grassley's son in baseball many years ago.
That'll be helpful. Good.
And Mark Warner is a friend. I knew him before
Yes.
he was governor. So, good people there, good people, and from other sides of the aisle, and hopefully that makes something happen. I was chairman of NFIB for 3 years.
Wow.
I know something about the lobbyists. We would go up there with our handful of lobbyists, and we would go up against armies coming from these big companies. So I know it's a super difficult uphill climb, and just thank you for taking it on.
All right. Thank you. Sarah.
Yeah, no, I think, I would even say that we could even probably beef this up a little bit, but thank you for your
Well,
work
believe me,
and
Sarah,
getting us
there are many other bills as well out there, including my more sweeping legislation that deals not just with tech, but changing the burden on what the government has to prove to start looking at some of these things. So there's a lot more that we can be doing. That is true. So keep going.
So
Yeah.
thank you. No, that was just gonna say, so thank you. And I think that we just as consumers need to realize that we can wield our economic power, and we could save Main Street businesses if we level the playing field, if we hold everybody accountable and everybody gets to play by the same rules.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. Well, this has been incredible. Thank you for being the entrepreneurs that you are, and also being willing to speak out. I can't tell you how many major businesses that you all would have heard of who know we need to see change, and other small businesses that are afraid to come forward because they think then they'll be punished even more in the online marketplace for speaking out. We actually had a witness in the hearing we did on app stores who from Match.com, of all places, who was willing to speak out, and the day before got a call from a business person at Google saying, I think your testimony that I just read differed from what you said to shareholders, what your company said to shareholders. It was basically an obvious intimidation method. And we actually forwarded to the Justice Department and are waiting word on that. But that's what I mean. And that's not going to happen to you, Sarah, with this, but I just know how difficult it can be. So I want to thank you guys for coming forward and being the voices for so many others that are rooting you on right now and wanting you to succeed. So thank you, and count me as one of them, and let's get this done. So thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Call for anything we can do to help.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you
Bye,
later.